I never respond to recruiter messages, but I'm responding to this one, and this is why. It's because in that first outreach message, we're sharing a ton of context of like why they're a fit. And that message doesn't necessarily need to be unique to every candidate that we're reaching out to, but it's definitely unique to the role. So when candidates see it, they're like, oh, you're not just looking for another person with my title. They actually have genuine interest in the role because they're like, well, I've actually solved a unique problem like that before.
Initiating becoming a hiring machine sequence in 3, 2, 1.
Hey everyone, it's Sam Keenly, and welcome to Becoming a Hiring Machine. This is the show dedicated to fixing recruitment by going beyond saying what needs to change and instead teaches you how to make that change. Today, we have an amazing interview ahead of us, but before we get into that, I want to tell you a little bit about the show. Essentially, we have shows within the show here. Some days we have interviews with industry thought leaders and others who are shaking up the space, while other days we cover things like trending topics. Stop by every Tuesday for a Tactical Tuesday episode where we go deep on how to do something that's going to help you drive better results in your day-to-day. And occasionally you get a mic drop episode from Matt where he shares something that he's been thinking about in the recruitment space and wants you to know. Now, as a reminder, if you like the content that we share here on the show, make sure that you subscribe for more. All right, today's interview. Innovation comes as a result of the right person being in the right place at the right time. And do you know which occupation has the single greatest influence on finding that right person for the right place at the right time? You guessed it, it's you, the recruiter. Very few roles really do have the opportunity to make this kind of impact, and that's why today we have a very special guest joining us to talk not just about how she does this within her agency, but also how they're viewing it in the scope of the rapidly changing recruitment landscape. So the guest, Lauren Price-Adams, Director of Recruitment at Career Innovator. So pull out your pen and paper. You're going to want to take notes for this one. Lauren, welcome to the show.
Hi, so happy to be here.
Oh yeah, and this might be your first podcast intro with Lauren Price-Adams as the recent newlywed.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about yourself, Career Innovator. I guess just the short story of how'd you get to where you are today and what led you to Career Innovator.
Yeah, it is definitely an interesting story and it's quite unique, but I will just share the highlights. I worked in consulting, which is an interesting side of staffing, right? You're going and doing different projects focused on IT. And at the time, my VP of the business, went on maternity leave. And then I got a call from her shortly after, right? Kind of talking through some of the gaps that she's noted in the industry and how she wanted to do things differently. Over years of just thought, leading and having different conversations with her, she did decide to move forward on that really exciting venture and hired me on as her first hire. So ever since then, for the past 4 years, we've been doing things a little bit differently here at Career Innovator, and supporting our clients and our candidates alike.
I love it. And one of those big things that you see on your website is you call us out in bold. Job fit does not equal match. I don't want to steal your thunder on this. Tell me a little bit about what that means to you all and why that's such a core pillar of what you do.
So I would say one of the strongest foundational pieces at Career Innovator is the time and attention that we take to really understand our clients' unique needs. So when you think about job fit, and job match, oftentimes most staffing firms are looking at, right, what does the job description say, or what are these specific requirements around industry, years of experience, and et cetera. But what we found to be really impactful is, of course, while taking those things into consideration, taking a ton of time to lean into what are our clients' really, truly unique needs, and really hearing not just from, right, the person at the top of the department, but the hiring manager, the team, and having some really strategic, powerful conversations to understand like what is the landscape, what's going on today, and what do you need for tomorrow. And that really empowers us to go out to the market, finding the right candidates. A large amount, like 90% of the candidates that we talk to, are actually not actively searching. We're going out and finding the right talent, not just the talent that's looking at the moment. So it's been really impactful, and I think our clients can see the difference.
Yeah. So are there any little things that you're doing in there? Because I know so many people, it's like, I'm going to use myself, for example, VP of marketing. It's like you go out and most people go and say either just post and pray. People are listening to this. Hopefully they're not doing too much of that, but proactively going out and finding that. Are most recruiters just going typing it, I want a VP of marketing. Like I'm looking for people that have past experience of VP marketing. And what's that little, without giving away your secret sauce, like what's the difference that you might be taking in, and if you were to be sourcing for that role?
Yeah, I would say a lot of candidates respond to our message and say, I never respond to recruiter messages, but I'm responding to this one and this is why. It's because in that first outreach message, we're sharing a ton of context of like why they're a fit. And that message doesn't necessarily need to be unique to every candidate that we're reaching out to, but it's definitely unique to the role. So when candidates see it, they're like, oh, you're not just looking for another person with my title. They actually have genuine interest in the role because they're like, well, I've actually solved a unique problem like that before.
Mm-hmm.
Or I've actually just done an implementation just like the one you described. And so it just gives a higher level of uniqueness to, I'm being reached out for a very particular role, which gives people a sense of like meaning and purpose and wanting to explore it further.
Yeah, and so that means you're doing your research and your Boolean search or whatever it is that you're doing to find that person. You've obviously put like specific skills or experience doing X type of migration, managing this platform, whatever the detailed item may be. So, what would you say was the aha moment when you all realized like, okay, this is the direction that we want to go? Was it a bunch of failed searches? Was it a delightful accident where you went deeper on this just to try it out? Like what kind of led you to this moment?
That is such a good question. I think from the beginning, Julie, our founder CEO, knew that things needed to be different. But we were testing out the market, right? We weren't sure how it was going to respond.
Mm-hmm.
We're testing out a lot of new things. And I would say our candidates really did give us that vote of confidence and enjoying the experience. You were spot on. We do spend a lot of time on the front end in terms of the research and what should our message say, right? Is that aligning to the things our clients looking for? But the fun part is when we start getting those messages back from really excited and engaged candidates. And then the even more fun part beyond that is that long 30-minute to 60-minute discussion and really getting details on not just what they've done, but where they're looking to grow and what they're looking for as an ideal next step so that we can try to enable that perfect fit.
So you're doing detailed searches and you're talking about where they're looking to grow, what would be a perfect fit. How much of that are you logging into your CRM and then using for future searches? Because I know this is something that Vivian and we talk about all the time on the podcast. Like, please use your recruitment CRM. This is exactly what it's for. Are you leveraging that?
Absolutely. So we take a lot of notes, and we've actually partnered and had some conversations with integrators that integrate with Loxo and take notes, which has been a really interesting journey this year. But yes, we're capturing all of it. Um, Funny thing about us, because the way we got started, we don't do any traditional business development. We're in a variety of industries across a variety of locations. So unlike a staffing firm that specializes in IT, they always know where to go when they're conducting a similar search.
Mm-hmm.
That's not always so typical with us. But whenever something does come up, we're like, oh my gosh, do you remember that job for said company? We go into our database, we're looking through the list, we're looking through the rejection reasons, right, to see those that maybe didn't make it past. And who might be a good fit. So we definitely do leverage our database with Loxo when it makes sense.
Okay, I love that. So on the note of jobs that you've worked, anything else, do you have a placement that you remember that's just like one that you're the most proud of making in your time as a recruiter?
Yes. And that's funny that you asked that because I think that there's a really recent case study for this on a chief people officer search that we've done.
Okay.
So our clients, like I shared, they'll come to us and they'll share, here's what we're going through, this is what we need. But the conversation does go to, right, okay, so we're looking for someone in this location, in this comp range, with this set of experience, and typically from these industries, because that's kind of the connector. But where our magic is we, just not me alone, also my CEO founder, we really think through not just our professional network, but also our personal network. Is there someone that maybe doesn't fit the ideal profile that would be a really interesting fit for this opportunity? And so we're going out, right? And in that instance, we do have to pitch a little bit more of like,
Mm-hmm.
this is different, but here's why, and really show them the magic that we're seeing. And then alternatively, doing that back on the client end. I'm really excited to say that we did have a non-traditional submit that turned into a hire very recently this year for a chief people officer role.
That's awesome. So, I mean, that's getting into skills based hiring in a sense where it's you recognize skills, traits, other things. I know you don't need to give away the person, the hiring organization, but what was it to you when you guys thought about this person when you're just like they're not a chief people officer right now or have come up that track, but they are uniquely qualified based on what we know. Like what were some of those things that came to mind that you were just like, I know this is out there, but hear me out, and when you were pitching it to the hiring manager?
It's more of the candidate's ability to pivot or the environments that they've worked in those unique situations that you can't really pick up on a resume.
Mm-hmm.
Where we're like, well, we know that this person has gone through some really crazy organizational transformation. They've done it under these specific circumstances. They're really working at a high level with the board, and that strategic mindset just really aligned to exactly what our client was needing. So, in that instance, I think another thing that makes us a bit different is we do have that deeper relationship with our clients, that they're open to a candidate submit. It's the trust and the, I think, value of the relationship to where they're open to investing that time and exploring, something that could be a good fit.
Mm-hmm. So, well, we have deep relationships with your clients. Do you have a lot of repeat clients, or are you able to just create that trust and great atmosphere even with some of your first clients?
So I will say a lot of our clients are fast growing.
Okay.
And because of that, we do a lot of reoccurring business with
Mm-hmm.
our existing clients. But we do grow a lot and exclusively through referrals. So in those instances, right, there is an element of building trust. Like the referral will only take you so far. But we've been able to kind of leverage the really good work that we've done and then just setting the example. We are
Mm-hmm.
100% contingent. We're as invested in the search as they are. And I think kind of our upfront approach has really been a differentiator for us.
Okay. I like, yeah, and that's always the tough part. Like referrals definitely help, like you said, but yeah, how do we demonstrate credibility early on, especially if someone's like, oh, I used a recruiter before, didn't end up being a great person, or any of those things. Are there any quick wins that you're doing, or any little things early on that you use as just kind of like check marks for the hiring organization? Be like, we definitely made the right choice in going with them.
I will say, like, the quick wins are that we don't just focus on this particular search. We're
Mm-hmm.
always thinking about the larger. Sometimes we're doing one search and we come across a profile that's not necessarily an open position, but we still take the time to connect with that candidate and put them forward. And sometimes there's a need that we just didn't know. There's been many times where there's been roles that have been created, so I think it kind of all ties back to that deeper relationship, and understanding, right, what they're looking for, where they're going. And then we go to the market, and sometimes it's a creative, right? A unexpected, right, win on both sides.
Mm-hmm. So I had to smile when I saw this on your website. There were some quotes on there from existing clients of yours. They're going to segue into one I want to get to, but two of these are about sourcing, I'd say, and then the other is just being more of a strategic partner. So, first quote: Career Innovator found candidates other firms couldn't in less time at a lower fee than the majors. And after one of the big guys didn't deliver, we asked Career Innovator for help. They delivered 3 candidates, and we went to offer all 3. So, I want to stop on that part for a second because this is you we were just talking about this before the call. I mean, you all doubled in size in the past year. You went from 3 employees to 6, but here you are taking on the big guys that couldn't deliver. You're finding candidates at other firms with much, like, I mean, when you think of the big Robert Halves and the other ones, like they have not unlimited resources, but they have access to God knows how much data, people, everything else. So what's your approach there? Do you think that's kind of going back to what we thought about in the beginning with your own personal networks, or and I don't need you to plug Loxo Source on this, but like how are you doing this from a different angle than so many other organizations are?
Yeah, so I will share, like, in targeted searches, I'm very anti job boards. I'm anti job boards because um, I think there's a bigger opportunity to spend time in an impactful way And if we already know what our client is looking for, why would we wait for them to apply? Why wouldn't we just reach out to them right away?
Mm-hmm.
So we do have the strategic approach in that, and like I said, in the verbiage and what we're sharing in that initial message. But we also have a really thoughtful, non-spammy process
Mm-hmm.
in getting people's attention and letting them know, hey, there's this really interesting role. I'll answer any questions that you have, and I want to understand what you're looking for, even beyond this opportunity today. I think candidates are really responsive because of that long term relationship, that strategic partnership, that we're not just using them to fill a seat today. We're really looking to understand how can we create a long-term relationship together for today and for tomorrow. And that really, candidates are really open with us in a vulnerable way. So it's been really a blessing to be such a trusted partner in our different networks and resources.
Okay. Yeah, so it's not just finding from other places, but it's also the quality of the outreach that you're doing is leading to more responses, especially from the right people. So yeah, it's this 1-2 punch that chef's kiss. I love it. Okay. The third quote on there was it's getting into that strategic partnership and building trust, like you said. So you had this client who said, after reviewing the roles and our struggles, Career Innovator identified the problems and candidates to fill the positions. So I think this is going beyond. It's not just taking a job order and saying, okay, like you have this role, I'm gonna find candidates for you, but identified the problems. So can you share maybe an example of a time where client brings you on, they think that they need a candidate for this role, but you identified some other underlying problem or something else that had them rethinking whether it's this role or maybe a department or anything else like that?
Yeah, so I think this really highlights a shift in industry where historically staffing firms are order takers.
Mm-hmm.
There's literally a job order is a document that is used in staffing. It has everything that you need, and this is exactly what I want. Take this job order, go find it, and come back when you have good candidates.
Mm-hmm.
But we even, beyond that, we're really hopping on a call on a weekly touch point, understanding what are they looking for now. We deliver on that. But oftentimes that changes, right? Because when you're talking to the top 3 candidates out of the 20 plus that we've talked to that are fitting this specific requirement, but I forgot about this one thing or something's a little bit off, we then reconnect, we regroup, and then we redefine that list. And sometimes it's an ever evolving process. But I think that is how staffing firms can really be unique and differentiate themselves on the market today. Is that what a hiring manager thinks they want and what they're looking for on day one might not actually be how they're feeling in the middle of that search.
Mm-hmm. So how do you help them come to this moment? Because sometimes if you tell them right off the bat, like that's not the role that you need, that's not going to land well. Do
Okay.
you start the search, present a few candidates, and let them kind of see like, I don't know, something seems off, or how are you guiding the horse to water, so to speak, on this one?
Yeah, so we're having long conversations with our candidates, and then similarly, we're sharing a really thorough overview with our clients. We don't just pass over the resume; we're sharing a deep, involved conversation around the specific right search requirements and even things beyond that. Oftentimes, there's some candidates that bring up interesting points, or they have unique differentiator themselves that actually end up being a top requirement the hiring manager didn't realize they wanted. So I think it's all about that level of detail.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Also, that level of detail off the bat enables the candidate client to have a really impactful first discussion versus going through a checklist. We've already done that hard work for them. So it's helping us evolve the search together. Of course, we're always going to deliver initially on what they say they want. And then together we fine tune that as to like what's going to be best for the team, the organization, and the culture.
Mm-hmm. And I bet that's why they come back to you for the repeat business after that. Once they're just like, oh, it's not just someone taking a job order, but they're doing all this for us and really thinking about us, our company, our needs. All right, let's talk about technology and recruitment for a second. So ever since day one, I've noticed with you all, you have this like a tenacious desire to want to learn and be ahead of the curve, which is very uncommon in this space. Most recruiters are like, this is the ATS I know. I've used it before. I know it's bugs. I know it's not great, but I'm comfortable with it. I don't want to deal with change. I don't want to deal with the data migration. Whereas you all have this mindset of like, no, we want what's best. We want what's going to give us a competitive edge. So tell me a little bit about, I know you mentioned your CEO and your thoughts there earlier on, but yeah, what's your overarching approach of, it might be scary, but clearly you're going to jump right in. Is that just part of the DNA of you all, or what did you see early on that we're just like, this is a competitive edge that we need to take advantage of?
I would say it's the way that we tackle any of our challenges. We don't want to do anything not full force. So we're
Mm-hmm.
all in. And when it comes to the systems and tools that we're using, we know like where we're trying to get tomorrow as an organization and the impact that we want to drive. And we know in order to do that in a really effective and efficient manner, we have to have the right tools. So you're right, right? There's a little bit of time investment in terms of identifying what platform works and having a lot of different interviews. And then once you find the right partner, like we did in Loxo, what does that migration look like? And making sure that everything is perfect and flawless. But I have to say, at the end of the day, it's totally worth it. Because in order to scale your business, you have to have the right tools, or you're just going to be running in a circle, wasting time in the wrong places, and not growing the business the way that it needs to be growing.
Mm-hmm. So we'll use Loxo as the example here because it's the best platform in the world. Kidding. Because it's one of the more recent ones that you've gotten into. One thing, I've seen two different ways that organizations go about change management, data migrations, moving to a new ATS. One is they start with a beta group or pilot group. They'll have a handful of recruiters start off with it. It's a slow roll. Hopefully it goes well. Then we have other groups where it's like, I call it the cold pool jump in. You just dive right in. You bite the bullet instead of slowly walking down a couple stairs and then think it's too cold, you get out. You just jump right in. You embrace it. If I had to guess, it sounds like you guys are probably the ones who dive in head first.
Yeah, we're the plungers, We'll just dive into the cold
Yeah.
whirlpool. And I think what's so powerful about the batch of just doing everybody, let's try this out, is there is a level of investment from recruiters when they realize
Mm-hmm.
that everyone on the team is doing it. I'm really going to get invested in this tool. I'm really going to try out all the functionalities. But also, everyone's different in terms of their feedback and experience. And I think if really looking to invest in the tool, improve the business, drive things forward, it's important to get everyone's unique perspective on that versus just one small population group.
Mm-hmm. So did you have an internal champion helping to lead this? Like if you have questions, like obviously come to Loxo, come to whatever ATS you have. Usually you have a customer success manager, but did you also have someone that was taking a little bit of responsibility for making sure that the team felt equipped and successful in using it?
So, as you know, we're lean and mean. We're actually lean and super nice, though. We're lean and nice. And, when with a smaller organization, it's like all hands on deck.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone hops in where they can, getting the job done. So I will say that we all were really leading in terms of like what functionalities do we need, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, in the day to day, I'm using the tool, I'm giving feedback to the team. And now, as you shared, we have doubled in size. We have, right, a lot more opportunity to explore those capabilities in the tool that are really powerful and exciting. So, I think it's all about scaling and scaling fast and efficiently and doing
Mm-hmm.
it all in the right place. And I think we're really lucky and grateful to have that today with Loxo. So we're excited about what's ahead, and yeah, we're all champions of the tool for sure.
I love it. Okay. One final thing. So you're active on LinkedIn. I always love reading your posts, your newsletters. And one of the ones that you recently wrote about was talking about how do you help candidates convey their experience to the hiring organization. But one that I see a lot of recruiters struggle with, despite the MPC approach, that I don't know, sometimes it doesn't quite land as they think. So you were talking about this year alone, you connected with over 350 candidates across various roles, industries, some who were passively open to opportunities, others who were actively hunting, and they were seeking advice on how to level up in their current positions. So the flip side of this is that traditional MPC approach, which is something that you all are clearly doing well. How are you really conveying? I know you shared the example earlier on of the placement that you were most proud of, where it kind of was an unconventional candidate, but I guess how are you conveying to the hiring organization the value of specific candidates, especially ones when this is going to be common for a lot of recruiters, where it's like you see it because you can see beyond the resume, but you have to help the hiring manager, who's not necessarily a recruiter by trade always, to see what you see in them.
Yeah, so we have a few very intentional things in our process to address that. Firstly, like I said, we have a very thorough submit, and it's not standard. We don't have a standard submit template where everyone's plug and chug, just put it in this bucket, because all of our searches are truly unique. But we do identify what are those top of mind categories. And so we do create these unique sort of templates. Like these are our talking points when we're connecting with a candidate for a particular role. Um, Beyond that, we're not just passing it along with the resume. We have weekly touch points with our clients. So we know that they're fully engaged in the search, and we get their feedback in real time. We're not just reading through what we sent, but we're highlighting certain things. We're talking about certain soft skills that maybe don't translate to a resume, and just highlighting the overall essence of this candidate, so that the client can really get a good feel and good sense of who this person is and would they be a good fit. Are they open to moving forward to next steps?
So a lot of that extra context.
Yeah.
All right, Lauren, this has been fun. I love this conversation. I feel like we could back and forth on this all day. Any final thoughts, words of wisdom, anything else for our listeners before we wrap?
Yes, I first of all, I could talk all day to you, Sam, about talent and tools. But I would just say, a piece of advice for recruiters out there who think, is it worth it to reach out to candidates that I know are qualified? It's worth it. The level of time and investment is worth it. Candidates truly appreciate the thought and the attention to detail. And for us, it has paid off time and time again. So not that you have to throw away your job board. I think it's a good complement to other sourcing efforts. But having tools like Loxo that are fully integrated and having everything in one place, being able to find those unique candidates and reaching out and telling them why they're unique is just powerful in itself for today and for tomorrow. Building that long-term relationship with your candidates is important.
I mean, everyone likes to hear about themselves, especially if it's words of praise, and it's pointed words of praise, like not just unique opportunity for you that everyone always sees, but hey, Lauren, I saw that you did this before. Like, I'm actually working on this role right now that I think you would be a good fit for because you did XYZ. And again, this isn't just the false personalization where it's entering their first name or the last company they worked with, but showing you did your due diligence, like especially in the rise of automated outreach right now, this is going to stand out that much more. And it clearly is for you all and paying off. So I love that advice. Hopefully more people take you up on it.
Awesome, Sam.
Well, Lauren, thank you for coming. This was a fun conversation. We'll have to have a part 2 at some point in the future because who knows? Hopefully next time this year you guys are doubled yet again. You'll have even more stories for us.
Absolutely. Anytime.
Love it. All right. Well, as we wrap, Becoming a Hiring Machine is a production of Loxo. If you like this episode and you're not sure where to go next, we have a link to a similar one. You can find that in the show notes in the description of your favorite podcast streaming platform, as well as on our website. Full video episodes are available on YouTube. If you ever have questions, send them our way, podcast@loxo.co. And lastly, if you did enjoy this episode, please make sure you leave us a quick rating in your podcast streaming platform. It takes 3 seconds, but it's going to help other recruiters like you to find us. All right, everyone. That's the show. That was a phenomenal interview with Lauren Price Adams. Until next time, bye, y'all.